One of the biggest emotions that I've really struggled to reconcile is guilt. And I think that's not exclusive to me, but rather it's quite human to feel culpable and to feel, responsible for a lot of events that didn't go to plan or perhaps, went off track to an extent. For your life and for others, feeling blame or shame is definitely something that comes with, burden. And being somebody that is perhaps more emotionally invested in life, you can often feel guilty because you do take naturally a more heavy shoulder, for any given situation, for your own choices that might manifest like self-punishment, really giving it to yourself.
Like my style?
How something turned
Hit the
out.
subscribe button so you don't miss any future videos.
Being hard on yourself is not always helpful. Putting yourself down just because of, your momentary lapses or your ill choices that had very small repercussions, isn't always the best approach. For example, if you are dedicated to a goal and you slip up one time, I think there is some, some grace that can be shared with yourself in that moment, because, if you only have a handful of moments that you feel like you dropped the ball, that's not the norm. That doesn't represent the totality of work and effort that you've put in, but rather just your very human, failures to an extent. I feel it too myself. When I first got to Japan 2 weeks ago, I got sick for about a week. And I just was pissed at myself because I was like, why can't I push through this? I have things that I want to do. Why can't I just get them done? I really wanted to update my website, my blog, which, by the way, is now finished. And I'll put some images of that here on the video. So, shout that out too. And by the way, that is looking pretty fire. There's a lot of new content up there, new photos. I'm going to be including some new writings. There's a new blog post right now about Japan. And you can find my current books as well as some future clothing options that are going to be available when I'm back in San Diego. So a lot of cool stuff on there. But anyway, I was feeling a little down because I had that sickness, and then I also pulled my back out, and I think the mixture of both really took a toll on me, and not to mention being in a new place, because while you do feel excited, you feel so enthusiastic to get out there and to meet people and to be sociable, I think on the other hand, it's a bit overwhelming. It's a new place and you're trying to adapt, you're trying to learn the language as quickly as possible so that you feel as integrated as you possibly can, because it genuinely does make your life easier. And all that takes time. So, as you're hard on yourself, you're pretty much digging your own grave, because you're not making it any easier for yourself to succeed with that type of attitude. So it's something you do have to kind of sort out as you go through it. And yeah, it's very turbulent. That's a good word. It's very dynamic. You might feel good one moment and feel piss poor the next. And riding that wave, man, that can be tough. But that's how it is in those moments. When your body and mind are not 100%, it takes time to recover. It takes time to get back to 100%. And the more you're hard on yourself, really, the slower you recover, the slower you recuperate. It doesn't seem like that in the moment, because it seems like you can just power through if you just go put one step forward. That might work until the immune system gives out on you, until your muscles give out on you. And in my case, I was still exercising pretty rigorously while I was sick. So it's not like I didn't pull my back out for no reason. If I did, I'd be like, I would be pretty hard on myself. I'd be like, what the fuck? But, in my case, I feel like it was due to being sick and running on top of that, doing some hard workouts. And it's not like, I'm, rational enough to understand that if I'm not feeling well, I probably shouldn't run as hard as I normally would. And I probably shouldn't put as much mental strain on my mind as I normally would. But it's what it comes down to is the compounding nature of fatigue, how it builds on itself. So even if you are doing less, it's still stacking, and your body and mind and maybe even spirit might just need more time. It doesn't feel like that's something you have, but unfortunately, if you're in that condition, you don't have much of a choice. If you power through, it's gonna catch up to you at a later date. So, being hard, being tough, it is good, from a general quality characteristic standpoint. But when it comes down to you and your well-being, then maybe you should give yourself a little grace, a little empathy. It might be what you offer to other people, so why not offer it to yourself? Everybody's capable of bad decisions. Everybody's capable of failing when it matters. So everybody should also be capable of understanding that fact. The fact that we are human, that we do make mistakes, that we do feel tired, we do feel lonely, we do feel perhaps hungry. That's a good one. What we do in our moments of extreme need and thirst, when we really crave something that we haven't had for a long time, genuine connection, perhaps high quality performance, admiration. What we start to learn is that a lot of these criteria perhaps maybe aren't always in our control directly, and that's a very traumatizing thing to come to terms with, because we feel especially in our 20s and late teens, is that is something we ought to have control over, that we ought to be able to push through, to be strong, and to persevere no matter what. But there are times when the grief, the pain, everything weighs down so heavily that we can't quite sustain it. So we tumble. We might hang on for a little bit, allowing our ego to run its course, to prove to us that it was able to do something after all. But even that will fall. The weight of the world is limitless. It's so heavy. And there's nobody that can carry it. Not fully, and not forever. There's no will that's strong enough to bear the pains of discomfort, of failure, of bitterness even. If we can't bear that in ourselves, how in the world can we bear the world? So we do have to, at the end of the day, come to terms with that in ourselves, because that is what helps us to, have that larger sense of empathy to share with the world. It really is something that does correlate, because if you don't have, an appreciation for yourself, how could you appreciate, everything around you, and vice versa? So I'm not sure which one is more important in that sense, but they do relate, and they do have, a significance. You should always try to understand. When you don't know something, try to understand. When you can't do something, try to understand. When you can't see something, take a step back. Don't be afraid to regroup and to pause for a moment, to gather your breath, and to rejuvenate, to allow your entirety to regain its strength before you jump back in. Sleep and diet are a huge part of that. So if you're watching this, then make sure that this upcoming night you get a nice full night of sleep. If you have to get 6 hours, 5 hours because of work, and that's just what it is, that's okay, but try to look forward to that for the next night. Try to line it up, give yourself a schedule, give yourself a opportunity to catch up and to get back on track, because everything will feel better when you're back where you should be. So anyway, wherever you are in the world watching this, I appreciate you, and hopefully you connected with the video, hopefully you resonated, and if you did, then consider subscribing if you're not already, and I'll see you on the next one. All right, so take care and peace.